Good morning, happy Friday, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lori Oldham, and I'm the Student Affairs Coordinator at San Diego City College. And I'd like to welcome you to our weekly City Club Showcase series, where we are able to allow our clubs within our college to shine. During the pandemic, you'd be surprised how many clubs that are really active and the wonderful students behind the faces of those clubs. And so today we have SACNAS, which is an award-winning chapter, nationally recognized for their work. And also their advisor is also nationally recognized, and that would be Dr. Levy. But I want to welcome with you today. I want to share with you kind of like the best kept secrets that we don't want to keep it a secret anymore. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome SACNAS, and thank you for coming, and I'll let you take it away.
Sure, thanks, Lori. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Diani Malgarejo. I use they, them, and she, her for pronouns. I'm the current president of SACNAS. And SACNAS stands for the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. So it's kind of a big acronym, but in short, what we do is we are a science club dedicated to diversity in the largest sense of the word. And I'd like for my other constituents to introduce themselves too.
Hey everyone, I'm Naomi Webb. I use she, her, they, them for pronouns. I'm secretary of SACNAS. And I love this club. I love being a part of it. I'm happy to be here.
Hey everyone, my name is Ariana Olvera. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a member of the SACNAS community. I just joined this last semester, and I've really been having fun just, being a part of a community who shares the same interests that we do, or that I do. Thanks for having me.
So what we were thinking of doing today is showing you a little bit about like what we do as SACNAS. In this virtual environment, a lot of what we've been doing is very different than what we did in person. In person, we would go and do a lot of live science demonstrations. We would go to a lot of professional networking events. We would go to SDSU or UCSD, and we would actually be out and around doing all sorts of things. But due to COVID restrictions, we've adapted to be more of a social, emotionally supportive, and generally uplifting club that also has connections to like how to do internships, mentoring, and like other kinds of professional development in a remote setting. So an amazing video that I'd like to show you was created by our fabulous secretary, Naomi, and it gives you just a little taste of what SACNAS is about. If you'd be so kind, Naomi.
Advocacy.
Empowerment.
Science.
Community.
Perseverance.
Technology.
Rockets.
Thank you, Naomi. I love that video so much. It really shows the different kinds of people that are involved and like some of the stuff that we do. Another thing that's really important for our clubs, as I briefly mentioned before, is doing some live science demonstrations. We have gone to elementary schools, high schools, we've been to universities, we've been to like public events like the Barrio Logan STEAM and Art Expo. So we've gone around the community. We've even been to Temecula one time. So we go all over San Diego to show kids and adults alike the magic of science. So one thing that I thought would be really exciting for us to show you a little bit of what we're about is to do some science demos. So we have 3 science demos for you today, and then we can talk a little bit about the club a little more. So if you would like to start, Naomi.
All right, so for my experiment, I did some fast-growing Epsom salt crystals. Usually crystals take days to make, but thanks to Epsom salt, I grew some in just a few hours. I filmed and edited and made this whole video of me doing the science demo. So let me give you guys a look.
I love that video so much. Great job, Naomi.
Thank you. So I'm sure you're wondering, how did that work? Well, Epsom salt is just another name for magnesium sulfate. So by using hot tap water, the magnesium sulfate is dissolved a lot faster than had it been dissolved by like any other temperature of water. And it's important that the salt is dissolved because by sticking it in the fridge, the whole solution rapidly cools down. So by cooling it, a thicker, denser solution pushes the dissolved salt out of the way to make room for crystal growth. By pushing them away, the magnesium sulfate atoms run into each other and join forces in a crystal structure. Had a lot of fun making this experiment, and I hope it inspires you to try your own at home. Thanks.
Thank you, Naomi. I love that experiment because it shows how just with regular household ingredients, you can conduct a science experiment, easy to clean up. I just love it so much. Thank you for sharing. And our next presentation is by Ariana, if you'd like to go ahead.
Sure, thank you so much. That was awesome, Naomi. I never get tired of seeing fast-growing crystals. So what I am going to talk about today is actually called DNA, and I want to try saying the full thing. It's deoxyribonucleic acid. So glad that I got that. Anyway, so funny enough, the National DNA Day is this Sunday on April 25th. So I thought, what better way to plug in some DNA demos? I also really enjoy biology and just like all things human nature. So first off, DNA is just like the building blocks of all living things, and it's in most of our cells in our human body, and that is so many cells and so much DNA, including our saliva. So what we're going to need to do to get started to extract our own DNA, I forgot to say that, is just grab some water and pour a little bit in a cup. I want to say just like very little. What you're going to need to do with this is gargle it. So I wouldn't put very much. You may have just seen me gargling some water, and that was for the essence of time. So just a little bit of water, and then we're going to take some salt and make some saline solution. And what this is going to do when we gargle it is just, you saw it was very little how much I put in there. And then we're just going to swirl it around to let the salt dissolve. And what this is going to do is just pull out all of the cells and all of the saliva that you have in your mouth and help to extract that DNA. So it's about dissolved. What you would do is drink this, and without swallowing, you would swish it around your mouth for about 1 to 2 minutes, making sure to scrape the sides of your cheeks, maybe your teeth. And the finished product, once you gargle it, will be this. It's a little more cloudy, as you can see. So that's just all my DNA in there. Next up, we're going to need some soap. This is just dishwashing soap, and I just have a little bit here. And what we're going to do is just add a few drops, just 1 or 2, to the solution. I'm trying to. There we go. It's about 1 or 2. This is very like at home. You can experiment how you want. I've done this a couple of different ways, but basically you're just going to swish it around a little bit, trying to prevent a ton of bubbles from forming. But as you can see, it's just a little bit of bubble. And it's already growing cloudier, which is what we want. Next up, you can take any alcohol that is 120 proof or higher, or just rubbing alcohol or isopropyl. I chose whatever was in my cabinet. And with this, this is a brown color, so it's going to contrast a little bit more with the white. You can also add some food coloring to this in order to further see the contrast between the white strands of DNA that we're going to watch and, the white color of the saline solution that we have. So what I want to do is just take a little pipette. You can also use a straw, or if you have a really steady hand, you can honestly just like pour the alcohol on top. I'm going to use a little pipette because it's kind of fun. So I just put it around the side, if you can see that, and just you just want it sitting on top. And what the alcohol is going to serve to do, sorry, I didn't even say, the dishwashing soap actually helps to break open the cells. So that's going to help us extract the DNA. And then what the alcohol will do is it will actually be to precipitate the DNA. And that's just a fancy word for pulling it out. And it will actually float suspended in the alcohol after we give it like 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm just going to continue to do this. And then, like I said, after 2 or 3 minutes, it will float in there. I'm just going to pour it so that you can see how that looks as well. Just slowly. And try to, pour it against the rim of the cup. So that way it's not mixing too much. Should look something like this. You see how there's different layers. So I already went ahead and did one. Hopefully this is showing some white. I also learned that if you have chilled alcohol, it will help to precipitate better. But basically you can see a little bit of cloudiness in there. What I do is I take a little toothpick, stir, and you can actually pull out the little white clumps of DNA, and I see one here. And little warning, this is going to look kind of gross, but it's very cool to just be able to see your own DNA. There's some clumps here I'm trying to get. It's like you're going fishing. I'd also recommend using a toothpick or tweezers if you have those. Let me try to see what this one looks like. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yes. So we have some white strands. Hopefully you can see those. A little bit of white clumpies. That is your DNA. Well, mine. But you can do this experiment at home and look at your own DNA in whatever way you want. Yeah. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Anna, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I love that these experiments are easy to do. They're at home, they're with your own stuff, just encouraging folks to get curious about science and the world around them. And I just love the whole experiment. Thank you so much. And I've got one for you today. All right, so today, I'm going to share with you an oil spill experiment. So you might wonder, like, why do we care about oil spills, or like, where do oil spills come from? Well, because we use so much fossil fuels to power our cars, gas grills, and we use them to generate plastics. Sometimes when transporting it, there can be accidents, and then there's big spills, and we have to use science and chemistry to find ways to clean it up efficiently without disrupting the ecosystem too much. It's a very delicate balance, and today I'm going to show to you a couple of methods. I think. All right. So it can get a little messy, which is why I'm wearing all my lab gear, but as long as you're careful, and maybe I would recommend having gloves because the oil can get messy. But here I have some oil. It has oil-based food coloring in it, so that's why it's bright green. And we have 3 bodies of water. We're going to pretend that this is like the ocean, okay? So I'm just going to make a few spills of oil, and let me know what you notice about the oil as I put on there. Or I guess you can think to yourself as you watch this. Say it out loud if you want. What do you notice about the oil?
Pretty clumped together on top. Sad.
Yes, great observation. It's floating on top, sticks together, kind of messy. So what I've got here, this is going to be your boom and skimmer method. So we have a plastic spoon, very high tech, but in the real world, you would have troops of boats out there manually scooping it with their materials. So we're going to try seeing how efficient is this method. Okay, you definitely have oil in there. There's a little bit of a glare, but I think you can still see it. And just imagine people out there on the high seas scooping out all this oil, okay? And it's working, and you're definitely getting the oil, but how efficient is this method? How long do you think it would take to clean up all of the oil? Especially after a certain point, it's just kind of sticking on the sides. And you're like, oh man, I definitely got most of it, but it's not all gone. So that would be the boom and skimmer method. We've got more methods though. We have something they're called sorbents. I have note cards, but I didn't bring them. Okay, but here is an absorbent cotton pad. This is like a makeup remover. I use it for my nail polish, take off nail polish. This is just a common household cotton pad. And so you could take this and try to clean up the oil. I'm going to skip to the next one here. And notice, is it cleaning up the oil? Yes, but it's also absorbing a lot of water at the same time. So how many cotton pads do we need to clean up all this oil? And in that, thinking about all of the resources you need, is it efficient? These cotton pads can't be reused. You know, they're waste, they get thrown out. So as we continue to think about different methods, here's another one. This is an adsorbent mat. So I'm going to use the square one. They're both the same. I just cut them into different shapes, but this is an adsorbent mat. This is polypropylene, and it's a kind of thing you can actually get it at AutoZone if you're doing like oil spill repair for your car. So this is accessible. And I'm just going to show you putting it on top here. Watch how it interacts with the oil. This is why you would need gloves, is because it gets messy. All right, so just putting it on top, giving a little bit of pressure just because, you know, video. If you were playing with it on your own, you could try different amounts of pressure. And then here's the magic reveal. Whoa, lots of oil and not nearly as much water. I'm going to give it a little squeeze. Not nearly as much water coming out. So this looks more efficient than the cotton pad, but these cannot be reused either. And this creates a lot of waste. And last but not least, we have a dispersant method. So this is all oil floating on the top here. And I'm going to use my little boom too. But here is, I have a 1-to-1 soap to water solution. It's just basically diluted soap. And so we're going to squirt this on top and watch what happens with the oil. All of a sudden, it makes little holes. So I think that's like 3 or 4 squirts right there. And you can see there's bubbles, but you can also see now the oil has a little bit different properties than it did before. You know, it's not all clumping together. It's not all floating on top in the same way. Now it's actually mixing kind of underneath into the bottom. And the more you mix it, the more it disperses. So some people say dilution is a solution to pollution, but even though it helps, the oil is still technically there. You know, it hasn't really gone away. So this is why we need scientists and chemists to come up with more creative solutions to figure out different ways to clean up these oil spills. There's a lot of different ways, and I can go into it for much longer, but I'd like to give us a chance to talk about SACNAS. But yeah, thank you for your attention. I guess, I don't know if, Laura, you have any questions for us, or if you'd like me to just continue to talk about what SACNAS is.
Well, I do have some comments because you just schooled me. I'm not really a science-oriented person, although I don't know how to do it, but I am so intrigued. I love nature. I love all the things that SACNAS stands for. But what I just wanted to say is that between the 3 of you that came up with these really unique demonstrations here on YouTube Live, I mean, I'm so proud of you all. It's just so amazing with what you do and as part of SACNAS. Do you learn it in class? Do you practice it in a club? Like, that's how I want to know. If I'm a student interested in science, how do I get to know, besides through a classroom, but how do I get to understand how to do those amazing demonstrations that you all 3 just placed before us?
So that's a really great question. I learned this one doing something extracurricular, but I think what happens is we are just so jazzed about science that like we find things that we're really interested in and just kind of go with it. You know, I think, I don't know, when I was, you know, first starting out school, I didn't think I liked science. I didn't think it was for me. I never saw anyone who looked like me in science, so I didn't even try. But now that I've, you know, matured a little and explored a little bit more, I love it. And so I just really like chemistry. And I looked up these experiments. There's plenty of them to look up online, at-home experiments, like home equipment. And we at SACNAS, when we do our demonstrations live around the county, we try to use materials that are found at the dollar store, things that are accessible, things that are you know, inexpensive, to make sure that we keep science accessible for everyone. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment.
I'd like to. Sorry, Naomi. Just being a new member, you know, in this new online format, I also thought, you know, how are we going to do science stuff that I'm interested in online? And, you know, this opportunity presented itself. And I think when the opportunity to do science presents itself, those who are interested will share stuff that they're looking to do. So we have what's called Slack. It's a little bit like Discord, but basically it's just like a kind of like a social media messaging system. And we just share things that we're interested in. And, you know, this was one of the things that I was, and it's just like the amount of encouragement you get from posting these things and being like, I want to do this. Does anyone want to see this? And, you know, when you do it and you get that reaction of like positive feedback, you're just like, wow, you know, I did science and everyone really enjoyed that I did that. So I'm going to keep doing it. So it's really just like the encouragement for me, at least.
Thank you. Naomi?
For me, I think like to get into this, like, you know, just you know, be curious, have a love for science, and the rest will follow, I think.
Wow. Well, that's phenomenal. So that'll lead us into from coming to San Diego City College, first of all, right? Where we have a world-class education for our students, but also, in addition to your coursework, these phenomenal student clubs and organizations. And so with that, I would like for y'all to talk about SOCNUS and your chapter.
Okay, sure. Like Lori was saying, we are a chapter of a national organization. So SOCNUS is actually, there's SOCNUSes at universities all across the country. And SOCNUS is not just for students, but it's also for professionals in the field. So if you join SOCNUS and you're interested in science, but you're not really sure where you want to take it yet, and you continue to work at it, you put it on your resume, and someone from, when you're applying to university, they're like, oh, I was part of SOCNUS. And so it becomes like a networking tool. And not only that, but every year in October, there is the National SOCNUS Conference. And so there's 5,000 people or more who are, there's Latinx people, there's Native American people, there's all sorts of people of color who are in science, who are official scientists, in the lab, they have their PhDs, they have their MDs, they have their DOs, and they're out there doing science, and they're there to help mentor young students. So it's a really awesome opportunity to get involved with great networking, great professional development, mentorship. And then we as a chapter specifically, we try to support each other, especially during this pandemic. I don't know if anyone else wants to share what SOCNUS is to them.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. SOCNUS is definitely especially during COVID times, it's been a really great support system for me, and I always feel welcome. I always feel at home, even though we're not physically in the same room. Our energy, we can feel it, and I really love that.
So for me, SOCNUS is really about the community. Not too long ago, we actually went and did some community work at a homeless shelter. And while it wasn't the funnest of works, we made it fun just because it was a group of people who really cared about, the same things that I cared about. And I love that there's a club with this group of people, and not only that, but people with the same color of my skin, that for me is really important, because I love to see representation of minority groups that are actually excelling. Diani already has a degree. She's just back for college because she wants to pursue something else in life. And for me, that is so motivating, especially as a first-year college student. This is I've never even thought about college before, I came to community college. So it's really nice to see just people who look like you and the representation of, yeah.
Thank you.
So if I am a student, I'm a viewer out there, and I can tell you, I think my mouth was open the entire time during each science demonstration, because I wish you could. I wish you could do that more around campus. I'd love to see you all do that when we get back on campus. But if I'm watching and I want to get involved with SOCNUS, what steps do I take as a new student, as a returning student? Is it too late? Is there a cutoff time? Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I'm sure anybody's watching is so excited.
Yeah, great question, Lori. So I would recommend two things. If you are able to email, it's SOCNUS sdcity@gmail.com. So that's our email. If you're hey, I just watched your video, I'm really inspired, how do I sign up? And if you go back, rewind the video and pause it at Naomi's video at the beginning, there's a little QR code, or the email address is right there. And we also have an Instagram, it's SDSOCNUS. And we're pretty active on Instagram as well. So follow us. But yeah, never too late to join. We love new members. We love people who are just interested in science, and there's leadership opportunities for everybody. Whatever you want to do, if you want to make posters, if you want to make music, if you want to do math, interpretive dance. Like there's all sorts of opportunities available, and we can make you a leadership position. You can get involved. Just come, and we're very welcoming. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak on that.
Well, I could just say that's how I joined, as one of my professors told me about SACNAS, and I looked it up and I was like, oh, I don't know if I should join. And I emailed the email that was on the national SACNAS website, and I got our advisor, Dr. Levy, as a response. And, she was so welcoming. She was just like, yeah, anytime you want to pop in, you don't even have to like come to every single meeting. And this space is really curated for who you are. So if you are interested, or if you think you're interested, absolutely join, and then, see if it's for you.
Yeah, it really what Ariana said, it really gives you a space to like kind of build off your passions and pursue them. And I really love that.
What I'd like to do is, is it too much to ask for you to put that one particular part of the slide with the QR code and the contact information? And then before we conclude, I do want to ask each of you, given that, look, as I said earlier, our student clubs and organizations and charters are like our best kept secret, but we don't want them to be. And that's the reason for our club showcase series every Friday. I look at the energy amongst you all. I mean, I want to join your club. I want to be a student again. I want to work with you all because your passion and your passion shines through, and your openness and welcoming spirits also shine through. But if I'm also a student that might be struggling because of the pandemic, I'd love if you could drop any pearls of wisdom, and I'll let you go answer each of you if you wouldn't mind. What's kept you going, and how you're able to persevere through a pandemic?
That's a really great question. I know I've personally struggled with it a lot. I'm a student. I'm also a parent. And yeah, just a lot of life has happened in the past couple of years. And it's hard. There's just no getting around it. It's just hard. I would say the number one thing that's helped me out is, the fact that I am a leader for SACNAS, and I know that what I say can help inspire others. That really has given me a lot of motivation to keep going. I know that it's not just me waking up in the morning doing my thing. It's like I'm also there to inspire others, to reach out to others, like, hey, check on others. How you doing? How you feeling? And make sure that like others are doing okay. And when I check in on others, like I feel like I'm checking in on myself, if that makes sense. So that helps me. But also like saying no to things that you might really want to do, things that in your heart, like you're like, man, I really wish I could do that. But that like you really do need that 2 hours sitting binge watching Netflix because it's exhausting during the pandemic. Like those things are like necessary, like whatever it is, maybe it's not binge watching Netflix, but you know what I mean? Like whatever it is that's for you, take care of yourself. There's only one of you and you're really special. So whatever it is that you need to do to take care of yourself, like do it. Because we need you. That's my advice.
Deanna, you always say like the most beautiful words of inspiration, and like it just warms my heart. You actually do inspire me. And Lori, to answer your question, well, like that's the $1 million question right now, is what is everyone doing in order to just stay sane and also, pursue education, because this is really hard. And I will say that Deani's saying no has been like my mantra. Like I am starting to learn, where my boundaries lie. And being a new student, it's going to take a little bit of failure, a little bit of overreaching and realizing that you can't possibly do all the things that you're interested in and help everyone at the same time, because you're still a person, like Deani said, and you have to, you're the most important person to yourself, especially in this crucial time. So I've definitely found ways of just self-care and really, figuring out my passions. So that's my advice as well.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, and Naomi?
Yeah, definitely a great question. It's something I'm still answering myself. I would say definitely just being okay with like not having the answer for that, and being okay with like, hey, sometimes some days they are going to be kind of bad, but that's okay, and it's not going to last forever, and there are good days too. So for me, that's kind of how I've dealt with it.
Well, I can say, and I'm sure anybody that's viewing this right now is just like, here's what I say about the wonderful students at San Diego City College. While I'm never surprised as to what you all are able to do, I am always amazed. And that's, I mean, your energy, you all are rock stars, right? I just want to thank you so much for allowing me to shine a light on you all today. Um, it is, I greatly appreciate the fact that you all prepared the time that you took into your preparation for today to create these science projects. Certainly had fun. For those viewers, you can see the information on the screen now is how to join SACNAS, where to email, when they meet, and also a QR code that we'll leave up on the screen while we're saying our thank yous. I wanted to actually thank everybody here today for joining us. I appreciate SACNAS, all the work that you do on campus. No longer the best kept secret because now folks know. And I hope to have you on again in the next school year. And yeah, there's an invitation from this group to come on and hang out with them. You'll be amazed at what you're going to discover. So this is the end of our showcase today, but I want to thank you all for joining us. Thanks, SACNAS. Thank these wonderful students, and hoping you have a great weekend. Stay well and be safe out there. I'm Lori